Hello, hello, hello. This is a review of the first two episodes of The War Between the Land and the Sea, a spin-off of that there Doctor Who, written by Russell T Davies and Pete McTighe. Yeah, this is the one that was, again, much touted after two execrable series. Russell T Davies spat out at us. We have this. Again, I don't know why it exists. I really don't know why it exists. Seeing the first two episodes. The first two episodes are entitled Homo Aqua and Plastic Apocalypse. It is just ideological slop. It's all the things you expect it to be. Clever sci-fi, it ain't. Subtle sci-fi, it ain't. Sci-fi that's going to make you think, it ain't. It veers between kind of childish sci-fi. You know, it has almost the kind of the idea palette of kiddie sci-fi, but then you have this kind of it edges towards grittiness. It stars plug-eared Russell Tovey as Barclay Pierre Dupont. Where do they get these names from? Who is an idiot. He's a moron. He's useless. The missus said to me before this aired, they're going to do a Tuttle Buttle thing. And I went, really? For those who don't know, in Brazil, there's a mix-up between Buttle and Tuttle because a fly falls into the typewriter that's typing out the arrest warrants, and the wrong man gets arrested, and it sets off a spiral. The story, that's the conceit behind the story, and this is what happens here. Tovey's Barclay is mistaken for somebody else in UNIT and ends up being roped in to the discovery of a sea devil body. Now, I'm not going to say Homo Aqua, I'm going to say Aqua Homo. It doesn't make any sense. The naming of it, the naming convention doesn't. If you've ever studied biology, you know that Homo Aqua doesn't make any sense because they're not Homo and they're not Aqua. You know, they're originally cousins to the Silurians. They're lizard people. They're aquatic lizards. They're not fish-like at all. But in this new series, they've taken on fishy qualities because why not? It served the story. Remember, in this kind of storytelling, the thing has to happen because the thing has to happen. Nothing in this happens naturally. So Tovey is an idiot because we want an everyman in that role, in that important role, to witness this stuff. We want an everyman in there, and so we contrive to put him in the centre of things. The opening bit, Spanish trawler kills a sea devil that they've netted, and Tovey finds himself with UNIT going to see the body, and that bit is, there's a bit there because I said, they're aping Close Encounters. Close Encounters works because Richard Dreyfuss's character becomes obsessed and he travels to Devil Mountain to see the aliens, and he pushes his way through, and so you have the everyman witnessing the aliens, and there's a setup here with when they're looking out to sea where it feels very much like the similar setup to that, but it's done rather badly. All of this is done rather badly. None of it makes sense. They've all got mobile phones. If they're an intelligence unit, no one would be carrying their personal mobile with them because they can be tracked by third parties. There's just so much wrong with this. Again, him being the wrong person, it would be flagged. How imbecilic are UNIT? Maybe that's what the I stands for in UNIT now. I don't know. Maybe I just take too much notice of these things. But I like my story universes to have an internal logic to them. And the way Davis writes, and I guess McTighe is helping him, is they have an idea, they have a scene in mind, and they work towards the scene rather than creating the characters and moving towards that scene, naturally. There's always a contrivance, there's always a conceit, and it's incredibly tiresome. It's really bad, awful storytelling. Why would you want the hero to be an idiot? Why would you want the hero to be completely useless, even his family? Again, Tovey, who is a homosexual, is playing straight. That's wrong. This is Davis's rules, not mine. Davis says that you can only play roles to your authentic lived experience. So he should not be in the role because he plays straight. They should have made his partner gay and the daughter adopted or something. It's not right. It's a contrivance that doesn't work. Again, I'm taking the piss. This is Russell T Davis's rules, not mine. But this makes a mockery of that. So you, of course, you have the mixed family. You have a daughter who's supposedly 16, going on 32. And of course he's split with his missus. It's all these fucking boring nonsense, gibberish, tick box storytelling nonsense, and it gets kind of tiresome after a while. It would have made more sense if you wanted to have an everyman there. It would have made more sense that Tovey, his character, wasn't involved with UNIT. If he was an everyman, if he was a Cornish fisherman or something, and he inadvertently kills or pulls in an injured sea devil and tries to nurse him back to life, but he dies, and then UNIT gets involved, and then the fish woman, who isn't a fish woman, lizard woman, calls on him because he showed compassion, but instead it's the old Catholic cross yourself, spectacles, testicles, wallet and watch that is invoked. How would the Sea Devils know anything about Catholicism? See, no internal logic. I sit there and I just get irritated. It rubs me up the wrong way. Boy, did I get rubbed up the wrong way. And so we replay the Children of Earth scene. You had the big glass container with the, wasn't it like arsenic gas or something? It was poisonous, but that's what the aliens breathe. The only thing they could breathe. Well, we rerun that again just for the spectacle. Again, spectacle. You could see where they spent the Disney money. They didn't spend Disney money in Doctor Who. They spent it on this because at least the story did move. It moved from place to place, and you had a sense of momentum. It didn't feel like it was a play in one room like the majority of those Gatwa stories felt. Very, very small, no money spent. All the money was spent on this, and it looked good, and it was well directed, and and the acting, apart from Tovey, who is just, I find him such a. He's a bad actor. I'm sorry, he really is. He's good at doing idiots, and that's about the level of it. And they've turned, Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, played by Gemma Redgrave, into some hard ass, and you are UNIT the bad guys. But yeah, you have the same thing where they come in, they build a tunnel into the Thames. Really, they'd meet him on the jetty and walk him in, surely. But no, we're going to build a massive. Do you know how long it would take us to build a great big tunnel into the Thames? It'd take them 12 years, and then it'd overrun, and it'd cost billions, right? It wouldn't happen overnight. So it's science fiction. It's science fiction. So you got all this stuff happening purely for them to have this big showdown, this big diplomatic showdown, which again wouldn't happen the way it happens. It would happen in closed doors. There would be it's just spectacle. It's all about spectacle. It's all about putting it on the screen. I get it. The scene where she's interviewing him about his goldfish. It's like, that wouldn't happen. That'd be an HR thing. They'd be in an office. Did you notice the roundels on the ceiling? There's the reference to someone. And so, yeah, she gets a glass of water from the Thames, and he's going to be. They want him to drink it because it's all on the nose, ideological green. We know we've messed everything up. We know that. But somehow Berkeley blames himself, even though we have no control over the water companies and and the people that do and the politicians that do make all these decisions. He suddenly goes, "Oh, it's all our fault." And it is just appalling. And then you have the plastic raining down in the plastic apocalypse episode, because doesn't it look good? It makes no sense whatsoever. There's no explanation of how this happened. There's no shots of the Sea Devils launching the plastic into the air so it lands on us. It can't rain plastic. It can't rain. They don't. Again, in the old show, the Sea Devils and the Silurians, they had technology, advanced technology. Even if they'd have bloody name checked it, but they just make it rain down on us because it would have made more sense if they'd have pushed all the plastic out of the sea, and you'd have had big walls of plastic surrounding England and France and America, holding us in. And then she could have said, "When we're taking the oceans back," and we'd have all been there would have been just walls of rubbish coming out of the ocean, and you could imagine them doing that. But we're just going to have it raining because it looks more spectacular. And there was I remember there was an anchor. I went, what anchor? As it fell and missed Russell Tovey. That's a shame. It was a shame. I'm surprised it didn't wing him one of his ears. Big ears. Leverage. Yeah, use it for leverage. Something to hang on to, those ears. So and that's the story basically. We're at war with and there's a great scene where Salt, again, I love Russell T Davies's naming conventions. Salt. Oh, it gets better. It gets better than that, because Barclay's daughter's called Kirby. Now I think of the pink character from the video games, and when you see his 32-year-old daughter, you think, yeah, she's a Kirby. She inhales her food too, just like Kirby does in the video games. Got to tick a box. Tick the boxes. Tick every single box. And so we're now at war with the Sea Devils, even though we apologise and we wring our hands and go, look, we're sorry, and again, it's a story that's been told before. It's always the Silurians and the Sea Devils come back because they see the Earth as their own and they reclaim it. There's no cleverness in this. It's all, like I say, it's all pretty on the nose, ideologically driven stuff. Oh, man bad, Sea Devils superior. Ooh. And, we don't call them Sea Devils anymore. We're better than that. I'm going to call them Homo Aqua. And you go... So this is where we're at. And again, the main problem with this is, even though he's mentioned several times, the one person who should have been there instead of Barclay wasn't there. I'm talking about the Doctor, of course. And because Russell T Davies completely screwed up the Doctor by creating two of them, one of them who's may or may not have regenerated into Billy Piper, and the other one who's currently mowing Donna's lawn and probably had too many sandwiches with his cup of tea in the afternoon. He's probably just sitting there just looking at the telly going, look at that, look at those Sea Devils. I remember when they used to knock around with the Silurians, and they don't call him, even though he's living with Donna and they've got a spare. He's the spare Doctor. They could just called him, even if he didn't do Doctor things. They could have got him there just to advise. But they didn't even say, well, he's off on his holidays. We don't know where he is. Just one bit of dialogue, just to explain why the Doctor isn't there. In the past with Torchwood, we knew why he wasn't there, because he'd gone. He was gone, and Torchwood were carrying it on. But with this, Davies broke the universe. He's broken the universe, and so here we are. And there's an hilarious point when Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who plays Salt, the leader of the Sea Devils, gets angry and turns into a man Sea Devil because, clownfish, So we get a little bit of trans in there as well, even though they're not fish, they're empty lizards. And you sit there and you go, well, this isn't for me. This is for people that don't know anything about Doctor Who. This is for people that think this is clever sci-fi. This isn't clever sci-fi. It's just pathetic, really. It is really pathetic, and you can see why the Disney deal ended after watching this. You can really see why, because they would have watched this instead of seen this. And this was filmed last year. They would have seen it and gone, what are we supposed to do with this? This is too ideologically driven, Again, there are so many ways we could have got to the conflict with the, with the Homo Aqua. It would have been much more interesting if, I don't know, maybe they were getting close to peace and there was a mistranslation or something. I don't know. You've also got a subplot with the eggs. Now, I've made jokes about this culminating with Tovey having to spunk on Sea Devil eggs in order to create a hybrid race to stop the war. I've joked about it. The missus got Tuttle and Buttle. I'm going for spunky eggs. But there is a plot branch off where they've stolen some of the DNA, the government. Again, get a little bit of asylum seeking in there as well. Again, that was unrealistic. They put them up in a hotel in London. There are no hotels in London that are free. They're all full of asylum seekers. I've been watching too many YouTube auditors. I jest, of course. But you did have a guy who gave over DNA to the government just to get British citizenship. Little bit of politics. Little bit of politics there. And they even had the Albion Party, Nigel Farage, a little clip of him ranting and raving about closed borders. And yeah, it's not good sci-fi. It is just, again, it's so ideologically driven. And yeah, we know what the message is. We know that we've messed up the Earth, and there are many more interesting stories. I think Tovey is probably the worst. Unless there's a turnaround and he becomes some sort of badass, and he picks up a gun and starts shooting. I don't think there's any way that I just don't understand why you tell the story from his perspective, because he is so useless. And if you'd have made him a fisherman, if you'd have made him an everyman character, and he discovered them and maybe nursed one of them back to health, and then Unit shoots the Sea Devil, there's like in Elliot finds E.T. or something, you go along those lines. But again, because they want to kind of break the narrative and they want to introduce useless men, it's, I don't know. That's just how I'm calling it. Maybe you enjoyed it. You probably did. I'm just the miserable old Doctor Who fan who takes this all too seriously. I don't. I just want a good story. This isn't a good story. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? I don't know. And again, we all know that pollution's an issue. We all know that we shouldn't dump stuff into the sea. But even the bloody Titanic turned up. So yeah, I thought it was absolutely appalling. We've got another 3 episodes of this to go, and like I said, I can see why Disney dropped it, because it is so poor. It is so poorly thought out and so poorly written, and the dialogue is so stilted. It's so bad. People don't talk like that. People don't behave like that. It's just, I can see why the BBC just haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue what people are about. And if you want really interesting, thought-provoking sci-fi, check out Pluribus on Apple TV. written by and created by Vince Gilligan, who did Breaking Bad, and has history. I think he worked with, I think he wrote for X-Files all those years ago. Now that's a show that creates an internal universe where it makes sense and people make sense, and it all fits together in a little, puzzle that you've got to sit through. It's I'm not spoiling it. It's an alien invasion, but it's part Andromeda Strain, part Body Snatchers, part Omega Man. There's, it's makes you think, makes you wonder what's going on. And this ain't that. And this is the problem with British television compared to American TV. American TV, they're basically making mini movies now, and they're putting it on the screen, and there's a lot of thought, a real class. There's some real good class stuff out there. And when we come along, I mean, I must admit, I like the look of it. I thought it was well, presented, well directed. I like the look of it. But the story, just didn't work for me, because it feels very basic. It feels very much like a kid's story, but then you've got all this kind of adulting bolted onto it. So yeah. So that was my thoughts. I'm sorry I've gone on for nearly a third of the episode length of the show, but I have covered 2 episodes. So imagine it's 10 minutes each, which is my usual length. If you enjoyed it, please engage with me and tell me why you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, do the same. Let's bash this out. And how are they going to explain away why the Doctor is not involved, even as an advisory? I don't know. Maybe he sprained his ankle. Maybe he was at a doing a fun run, and he sprained his ankle, and he can only sit in a chair. He could still be an advisor, couldn't he? And we could let Barclay Pierre Dupont be the action hero we need. Like I say, if it turns Rambo halfway through and Tovey rips off his shirt, oils himself up and starts shooting with both, double wielding, then I think it might work. But until then, I'm worried he's just going to end up with him spunking on those eggs. And I don't know about that. Anyway, thank you for watching. There's no sonic screwdrivers, there's no TARDISes, because there's no Doctor Who. This is the war between the land and the sea, starring Russell Tovey, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Gemma Redgrave, Colin McFarlane, Ruth Madeley, Adrian Lucas, and many, 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 many more. And it's exactly what's wrong with British television at the moment. Thank you for watching. There's no more thing I have to say. My name's not that. His name is Ta-ta.